At election time, a lot of people question voter competence. We ask people questions about the name of their senator or who holds a majority in the House of Representatives. And lots of Americans can't answer correctly. And so the question becomes, do people cast the wrong votes? Before I answer that question, I want to point out one thing about all of us. On almost every political issue, almost all of us are completely ignorant about almost everything. Like, how many of you have actually read the Affordable Care Act? It's over 900 pages, and yet a lot of people pretend to be an expert about it. So as we think about voter competence, let me say first that there are two types of people. One type recognizes that there's a lot of things about politics they don't know. The other type is delusional. Now let's think about whether we cast the wrong votes. There's evidence that, in fact, we don't cast the wrong votes, even given what we don't know. For example, let's think about information shortcuts. These are simple devices we use to make complex decisions. Think about a traffic intersection. Sometimes you'll be in a car, and there'll be a lot of other cars at the intersection, all trying to go through a very small space. In a big city, there can be 60 or 100 cars at an intersection at any given moment. Now, how do we get through that? Because technically, what you'd have to know are the intentions of every single other driver and the speed and acceleration of their car. And you'd have to guess the exact moment to try and go through that small intersection so that you can get through unharmed. But of course, none of us think about that because we just sit kind of blindly listening to the radio, some people texting, although you shouldn't do that, and just looking at a light and trying to figure out whether it's red or green. And when it's green, most of us go. And so we take what could be a very complex problem and solve it through a simple information shortcut. We do the same thing with brand names when buying all kinds of consumer goods. And so even though politics can be very complicated, sometimes there are brand names that help us make the same decisions we would have made had we known a lot more. Those brand names include Democrat and Republican. For people who really care about the environment, they could include the Sierra Club. For people who really care about gun rights, it could include the National Rifle Association. These are brand names that we use all the time, and evidence suggests using these brand names to make decisions often lead us to make the same decisions we would have made had we known more. But there's one other thing that help us cast pretty good votes, even though we might not know very much, and that's the fact that the choices we face are often very simple. Consider the presidential election. Now, I don't mean to offend anybody, but most people believe that there's only two people who can win. So in effect, we have to choose one out of two options. Now, a chimp with a coin could get one out of two options half the time. If we just let them flip a coin and cast a vote, and there was a right candidate for the chimp, they could get it with a coin. But when we think about electorates and we think about majorities voting, it's even a little simpler than that. So suppose we gave everyone in America a coin, and that coin gave them the right answer. Let's suppose there's one candidate that's best for America. That coin gave them, each person, the right answer 51% of the time. If everyone flipped a coin and the electorate was, say, 300 people, or 1,000 people, or 1,000,000 people, the probability that a majority would select the best candidate gets to 100% very quickly. So even if every individual gets the right answer 51% of the time, a majority of the electorate can get the right answer almost 100% of the time. So it's very important in a democracy to be informed, to find out what you believe, and so forth. But just because you don't know certain types of questions that are asked about in the newspaper doesn't mean you cast a bad vote, because you can use things like information shortcut and the fact that the menu is really short to choose the thing that you would have chose had you known a lot more.